Mark asked me to do 3 of his mom's favorite hymns, and the first one's the Old Rugged Cross. So if you want to join me on the chorus, if you know it, that would be great. On a hill far away stood an old rugged cross, the emblem of suffering and shame. And I love that old cross, where the dearest and best for a world of lost sinners was slain. And I'll cherish the old rugged cross, till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange someday for a crown. To that old rugged cross I will ever be true, its shame and reproach gladly bear. Then he'll call me someday to his home far away, and his glory forever I'll share. And I'll cherish the old rugged cross, till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange someday for a crown, and exchange someday for a crown.
Thank you. On behalf of the family, I'd like to thank you all for coming today to this memorial service, the celebration of life for Jane Williams. By being here today, you're making a statement that her life was important to you. And not just for yourselves, but you stand in proxy for those who could not be here today due to distance or circumstance. So thank you again for coming. Would you please join me in a word of prayer? Heavenly Father, we thank you for the ability to be here today to celebrate a life worth honoring, a life well lived, the life of Jane Williams. We give thanks today that she was part of our life and that we could be a part of hers. And we pray that you would be with us, be present today to comfort and also to inspire us, that we might honor her as she deserves. I pray in your holy name.
Here are some of Jane Andrews' nieces, and Marcus gave us the privilege of reading a few verses. The first one is taken from Romans chapter 5. Therefore, being justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ, by whom also we have access by faith into this grace wherein we stand, and rejoice in the hope of the glory of God. And not only so, but we glory in tribulations also, knowing that tribulation worketh patience, and patience experience, and experience hope. And hope maketh not ashamed, because the love of God is shed abroad in our hearts by the Holy Ghost, which is given to us. And the next is taken from Luke chapter 8. And it came to pass that when Jesus was returned, the people gladly received him, for they all were waiting for him. And behold, there came a man named Jairus, and he was a ruler of the synagogue. And he fell down at Jesus' feet and besought him that he would come into his house. For he had only one daughter, about 12 years of age, and she lay a-dying. But as he went, the people thronged him. And a woman having an issue of blood 12 years, which had spent all her living upon physicians, neither could be healed of any, came behind him and touched the border of his garment, and immediately her issue of blood stanched. And Jesus said, "Who touched me?" When all denied, Peter said that they were with him and said, Master, the multitude throng thee and press thee, and sayest thou, Who touched me? And Jesus said, Somebody hath touched me, for I perceive that virtue is gone out of me. And when the woman saw that she was not hid, she came trembling, and falling down before him, she declared unto him before all the people for what cause she had touched him, and how she was healed immediately. And he said unto her, Daughter, be of good comfort, thy faith hath made thee well, made thee whole. Go in peace.
Just as I am, without one plea, but that thy blood was shed for me, and when thou didst me come to thee, O Lamb of God, I come. Just as I am, and waiting not to rid my soul of sin's dark world, and that thy blood can cleanse each spot, O Lamb of God, I come, I as I am, tossed about with many a conflict, many a doubt, fighting within and fears without. O Lamb of God, I come, I come.
In that passage that was just read from Romans, Paul talked about boasting in his tribulations or sufferings. Now, if you look at Paul's life in the book of Acts, which is kind of an abbreviated, relatively short story of his life, it seems you might get the impression that his sufferings took place in just a short period of time, a few years. But from the time of his conversion until his death was about half his life, probably 25 to 30 years, and he wrote this book well into his ministry, after 10, 12 years of service. So if you think about the sufferings that Paul went through, his blindness, the time in the desert, travel, beatings, being run out of cities, all these things, they reflect a lifetime of struggle. But Paul also experienced joy along the way that made that struggle worth it, that helped him develop that endurance and that character. He had joy from the work that he did serving the Lord. He had joy from the relationships that he built along the way. And he had joy from seeing others learn and grow. So in spite of the struggle, he kept going, doing what he knew he should do, and believing the results would come. I share this about Paul because I think it's relevant to the story of Jane Williams' life. It was a long one, longer than she ever expected, but it was not an easy one. One of a large family, many children, that tried to survive during the Dust Bowl in Kansas. So they eventually made their way across the country. On her 12th birthday, I believe, she was en route with her family across the western United States till they settled in Ashland. As a teenager, she left home with a friend and friend's family to go work on the other side of the state to make money to her first job. And she lived on her own for quite some time. Then later, she got married and had children, and as a mother with 4 active children, and after working on her feet all day in different jobs, often as a waitress, and taking care of her children, that was a lot of work. Then in her later years, losing many of the people that she loved, and finally having to hear a doctor say to her, "You have cancer." These are just some of the sufferings through which Jane lived. And I think the hope that they produced in her, aside from her faith, was the belief that she could survive, that she could adapt and overcome. You know, the simple belief that one can get through a crisis is so important in one's ability to cope. In addition to belief in character, perhaps the most important thing one needs in order to get through a time of suffering is supportive relationships. The knowledge that there are people who care about you and are there to support you makes such a difference. Jane always spoke highly of her parents and her brothers and sisters. She shared with me how much she enjoyed seeing her family at birthdays within the last year. I know it meant so much to her to have visits from her nieces, especially when she needed a good meal. Her friend Sharon had been there for her for decades, especially she was there those last difficult hours, those last difficult days. Of course, her partner through it all, her husband Marion, was a friend as well as a partner over 55 years. And finally, her children. Her daughter Patty was her best friend until Patty's life was taken too soon. And her sons Sam, Warren, and Mark. She was so proud of the men that you became. And she was proud of your children as well. Jane felt so loved in her last year. If she didn't tell you herself, let me assure you, she was so grateful to all of you. And I thank you on her behalf. I believe that no memorial service, even one as well planned as this one, is ever enough to honor the life of a good person like Jane Williams. So I urge you not to let this be the end of your memorial. You can continue to honor Jane by supporting one another and loving your families just as she loved you. So I don't want to leave you with a mistaken perception. Jane's life did have its share of struggles, but thanks to her character, thanks to those she loved, her life was filled with joy. A joy that she not only experienced, but that she shared and gave to others. So I want to leave you with another passage from the Apostle Paul. This one focuses not on suffering, but on joy. He writes to the church at Philippi, "Therefore, if there is any encouragement in Christ, if there is any consolation of love, if there is any fellowship of the Spirit, any affection and compassion, make my joy complete by being of the same mind, maintaining the same love, united in spirit, intent on one purpose. Do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility of mind, regard one another as more important than yourselves. Do not merely look out for your own personal interests, but for those of others." So I think if you adopt this mind, and if you support one another in that way, then you will make Jane's joy complete as well. I'm glad you're here. This is a time not just to hear about a life, but to share as well, because this service is for you as much as it is for Jane. So the family wants to have a time of remembrance where you can share stories, you can share what you felt was special about her, the things that you'll remember, and share with your children and grandchildren. And before you do, I'd like to share just one little bit about my own memory. It was next week, on the 13th, will be the 1 year from the time that I first met Jane Williams. I went back and looked at my notes, and a lot of good things came to mind when I looked back on those visits that I had with her. My wife actually had other plans this weekend that she wanted us to do. And so she was a little taken back when I was quite adamant that, no, I needed to be here. I needed to do this funeral. I felt I had to. And then, I was kind of surprised as well at that. And I thought about what was it that made me feel like I had to be here. And I think it's because Jane shared her story with me. She opened up and let me see who she was. She shared about her faults. She shared about her joys. She was humble about her successes, and she shared with me about her loving family, and so I felt like I had to be here for all of you. It was a gift to me to learn about her life and spend that time with her. So, Sam, if you want to come up, and then afterwards, if you feel like you don't want to come up to the microphone, that's okay. You can probably hear. Just stand where you are. If that's easier. Remember, this is family, so don't feel like you have to do a professional presentation. Just it's an opportunity to share from your heart.
I will not do a professional presentation. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. I think the earliest memories that I really have of Mom that stick with me have to do with Mom and her family, the Fowler family of Ashland. 10 children, a very strong grandmother, a grandfather, and all of my aunts and uncles who lived in the Ashland area, including a couple of cowboys. They always wore cowboy hats that had horses and ranches, and it was a wonderful childhood for us to visit my mom's family in Ashland. And to this day, it remains very special to me, and I appreciate all of her family so much. My grandma and grandpa lived in a big farmhouse in Ashland with a big barn, and it was a wonderful place to play as children. I had all of my cousins to play with. We went swimming. My uncles made ice cream in the summer, and my aunts were all loving and gentle and tender with us as children. And my mom was in her element when she was at home with her family. And curiously, my mom's name, Jane Marie, her family, for whatever reason, always called her Marie. Whereas at home with Dad always called her Jane, or more often, Jane. So my mom was a different person as Marie. And in fact, my mom's closest friends called her Marie as well, whereas acquaintances called her Jane. So my mom had these two dual personalities, but being at home among her family in Ashland really sticks with me. Mom was, I think, a social person. She loved being around people. She had lifelong friendships. I see one of Mom's friends in the room right now, Sharon, who Mom knew for well over 60 years. Mom had acquaintances that she went to lunch with, if not weekly, then regularly. She loved them all, and as they moved away or died, that was a huge hole in Mom's heart for those people. She missed them all. Mom managed to, raising 4 kids, I don't know how she did it, but she found time to work with her hands and do her ceramics. She did that for many years. Made all these wonderful objects. Too many of them are broken now, but some of them showed up in my aunt and uncle's homes, and every time we visited, I would see them. Every Christmas, we would pull out Mom's Santa Claus and her sleigh and reindeer that she made. And she was wonderful at that. She had a good hand, and she could also draw. She was also a bowler. She bowled in bowling leagues. And she had a big clique of friends that she bowled with for years and years. And she was good at it. She brought home trophies, and she brought home prizes. She brought home one time a big bowling ball that had writing on it that signified that she'd won a tournament. And it was solid wood, and it weighed a ton. Unfortunately, it didn't last very long because I think she was afraid Warner and I would conk each over the head. We may have, in fact. And Mom had a bowling bag, and she had her own bowling shoes and a big black bowling ball. I have no idea how she could have thrown that ball down the alley, a 10 or 12 pound ball, because She was always a petite woman, but that was part of her social circle. She loved being around people. She would come home after bowling a tournament, and she would be so excited, and she would relive it with us at the table and tell us if she had just gotten that spare in the 11th frame, she would have had a 200 score and so forth. She was so proud of it and so into it. And there was a period of time, as part of their social life, where Mom and Dad actually began square dancing. They belonged to a club. Their outfit, as they were called, was called the Rustlers. And Dad had cowboy boots and a cowboy buckle, and remember this, and a cowboy shirt, and Mom had the same plaid in her shirt and a big flowing skirt, and they would travel around to everybody's home once a week or once a month and practice. So when practice time was at our house, Mom would send Warren and I to the garage, and we would take everything out of the garage, completely empty it. There was nothing in it, and we would have to sweep it clean. And if there was dust pushed in the corner, she would send us right back out, and we would have to clean it. And all of her club, 2 squares of them, I think maybe 12 people all told, would practice with a record player in the garage. And then, once every couple of months or so, they would have a real blowout at some Grange Hall or someplace, a real hoot name, where all these clubs from all over the city would come, and they would have an actual caller, the man with the cowboy hat and a microphone that would call the squares. And I went to a couple of those, and there might have been 100 or more people square dancing, and Mom loved it so much. She was exhilarated by that, by the friendship, by the sharing, by the dancing, and it meant so much to her. I think that Dad probably danced with 2 left feet, but Mom was good at it, I'm certain. So she had this social enjoyment in her life, as well as working, as well as raising 4 kids. And I don't know how she did it, but it was very important to her. I have other memories of after Mark was born. Mark was a baby in the family. We moved to a bigger house in Kaiser, and Mom would not, I remember her arguing with Dad about it. So we weren't going to move into that new house until she had painted the whole place. So Dad was off working, it was in the summertime, I remember, and he was off working all day, and Mom painted the entire inside of the house all by herself. And Mark was in a little sleeper thing, and so Warren and I and Patty would take Mark out into the garage so he wasn't breathing paint fumes. We would give him a bottle and he would sleep. And Mom painted the entire house all by herself because it just had to be just perfect. And I can also remember when Mark was a baby that if he was making a funny face or a funny posture or some such thing, that Mom would come and get us kids, Warren, Patty and I, and just say, come, look at Mark, look at him, isn't he cute, isn't that funny? And she, that gave me a glimpse, even as a child, into a very sweet and loving aspect of Mom's personality. And I remember it made me happy for Mom because she was happy. It made me happy for my family. And I remember thinking that Mom must have been just like that with me and with Warren and with Patty. And that was wonderful for me, even as a little kid. I'll share a few more stories and then give it up. Mom had a compassion. It was in her heart for other people. And most often, at least as I could see, she expressed it for people that she didn't know and would never meet. If she read an article in the paper about refugees being pushed around the world cross-border with nothing on their backs except, nothing rather in possession except for clothes on their backs and what they could carry. Or people who were flooded out of their homes, or people who were burned out of their homes, or people who had some kind of disaster befall on them. She used to say, she said it right up to the end of her life, it's just, I feel so sick about those people. It makes me want to cry. She felt it in her gut. It wasn't just an observation about people who were in a bad way. It really deeply affected her. She had a true compassion and empathy for people. And I remember her expressing those kinds of things throughout her entire life, right up to the very end of her life. Growing up, I think all four of us kids knew exactly who Mom was. She never wavered. If we were going to ask her for something, or if we were going to push it a little bit and ask for something that we knew she probably wouldn't give us, I think we knew before she even answered exactly what her answer was, or would be rather. She never wavered. She knew who she was. She knew what was important. She knew in her gut what was right and wrong, and she was consistent about that her entire life. And for children growing up, having a mother in that who dealt with us in that way was wonderful. It gave us a home. It gave us something to hang on to. Mom was just rock solid in that way. She always was. Also, on the lighter side, Mom had sayings that that we heard throughout her entire life. When we were little kids, she'd tell us to simmer down. And I took that literally, so when she'd say, simmer down, we would go, simmer, 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 simmer. And she would laugh. Or if she asked us to straighten out or to straighten up, we would do this. She'd give us a playful swat, but she laughed with us about it. She thought it was funny. But the one that I will remember forever and take to my grave is, she would always say the house was cold as a barn. But more especially, it's so windy outside, it'll blow the hair right off your head. And I'm sure that I was at least 10 years old before I gave up on seeing the hair blowing right off somebody's head. Because I heard it 100 times, or maybe 1,000. So I think Mom had some Kansan in her throughout her entire life, having come from a farm, having grown up on a dairy ranch in Ashland. And that stayed with her, and she had a lot of sayings that always struck me as being funny when I was a kid. But I see the sense to them now. The last thing that I would like to say is that over the last year, after Mom lost Patty, there was a real hole in her life. And after Mom was diagnosed as being ill, my brothers and I, and Mark's wife Gracie, looked after Mom as best we could. And a lot of Mom's family and some of Mom's friends told us all that they appreciated us doing that, which of course I believe they did. But what I've learned since Mom has passed is that over the last year, she became my rock. And that having that opportunity to really get close to Mom and to take care of her as best I could was a wonderful thing for me. It enriched my life. I wasn't just helping my mom, she was helping me. And now that she's gone, I really miss her. I really miss her. So she had a long and wonderful life. And I'm so proud of her. And I love her now more than I ever did. So thank you all for being here.
A public speaker by any means, and kind of an emotional wreck. But thank you all for being here tonight. It's about it. I've lived my entire life away from the family. I've lived in Alaska since '78, and I was in the Air Force then. So I've never really been intimately familiar with my mother as an adult, except to come home for occasional Christmas and stuff like that. But as Sam said, there's kind of a hole. Gonna miss you.
I'm still the baby in the family. I'm probably going to cry like a baby.
No, that's my job.
And forgive me, you might hear some common themes in what I have in my prepared remarks from what Sam said, which is really uncanny. We didn't share this at all. So forgive me to hear a few things. So, on behalf of my brothers and our entire family, I want to say a special thank you to certain individuals that are here today, because I think it's important. This is the place and time to do this sort of thing. We always say we're going to do it, and then people move on and pass on, and we don't get to say the things that we should to people sometimes. So, I got a few thank yous I want to make public. First, to our Williams cousins side of the family, Janie, Carol, Cece, Jerry, and Mike. Thank you for your countless visits with Mom, not just the last year in her life, but since she moved from Albany to independent living and assisted living, for taking her out for all those drives and lunches when she was up to it, and especially to our cousin Carol. You took her on some road trips outside the Salem area, Mount Angel, Silverton. She just loved those sorts of things. Anytime she can get out of those four walls at Lancaster Village, she was happy. She enjoyed all of your company. She talked about your times together and looked forward to the next visits. So thank you to all of you, and we do love you. Thanks to a longtime lunch buddy friend who's not with us here. She's down in Southern Oregon, Donna Ogle. She couldn't be with us today, but a lot of lunch appointments over the years and occasional visits to Spirit Mountain Casino. She was a chaperone to Spirit Mountain. And as your program mentions, a big thank you to the staff at Lancaster Village and Hospice Care. Is there anybody here that's represented from either of those? No? Oh, mine? No. Okay. I just wrote down some remarks that comes to mind over watching them in action take care of Mom over the this last year. She got sick. If they're here, I would say that your work is extraordinary. Your love and compassion for your patients is impressive. And you not only help the patients through their struggles, but you're also helping the family members cope with it and heal through the grieving process. And I really appreciate that. And as Sam mentioned, I'm so glad she's so here. I'm so glad she's here. She is family to us. And that is Sharon Reynolds. Sharon? And Sam's right, that spans over a 60-year friendship. She used to babysit my siblings, not so much me. Sharon lives at Lancaster Village also. And so I think it's interesting, it's come full circle. A friendship that began so many years ago. Sharon is with us here today. She was with us on that last day of Mom's life, that Sunday afternoon, that final day of her life. So thank you, Sharon. It's extra special to have you with us. And thanks to all of you that are here and have traveled a great distance to be with our family. Mom's was a life well lived and well loved. And I think an end of an era has come to my family. 58 years of marriage, 7 grandkids, and in 2011, she welcomed 2 great-granddaughters into the family. She was patient, kind, caring, and she made great sacrifices for her children. My memories and experience of Mom during my 54 years are many, and I just want to share a few of them with you. I remember so many Christmases and Thanksgiving at our home up here on Main Street, and as Sam mentioned, we would have get-togethers with Williams and Fowler family would come to our home, and Mom was a great cook and a baker. To me, I remember she baked a lot of pies in her life, a lot of pie. I remember eating a lot of pie crust. And she loved this family time together. When I was in T-ball, we were involved in a district championship here in Salem. It went on for weeks, it seemed like. Mom was the one who drove me to all my games all over Salem. She stood on the sidelines cheering me on, and oftentimes those games would last well into evening, as my son and his daughters know. We spent an Easter Sunday on the Willamette River aboard the Jane Marie, which was our cabin cruiser, and my brother's water ski. Dad was at the helm. We docked on a sandbar for lunch and enjoyed an Easter feast that Mom had prepared. And to this day, that Easter Sunday sticks in my mind as one of the best times. Greatest memories of my mom and our entire family together. I just enjoyed that, and I still remember that. When I studied private music lessons, it was Mom who had to take me all of those weekly lessons for several years, and this lasted all the way through high school. It was Mom and Dad who expensed for all those lessons for both Sam and myself. And again, that's where the sacrifice comes in. Growing up, leaving home, starting my own career, moving to Portland from Lincoln City, it was Mom who had the confidence in my decisions I was to make, not so much myself. In a nutshell, us four kids had a great childhood growing up, exposing us to many life's experiences and supporting by two loving, caring parents. Through her years, Mom was a Bluebird leader, a Sunday school teacher, a painter, ceramics. Sam said she square danced, she bowled. You'll see some of the bowling things in the video here. She loved bingo, horse racing at the state fairgrounds. I remember coming to her in the late 70s from Lincoln City for a day with horse racing. Playing cards with the Fowler family till wee hours in the morning. Watched only Fox News. That's no joke. She enjoyed a really, really hot apartment and a really, really cold glass of beer. She was a Mariners fan. Of course, the casinos, and she never missed a weekly hair appointment at the beauty shop. Never missed.
That's me.
That's you? Dee's back then.
I'm the one who kept her beautiful.
Most importantly, she was about family. Her family and extended family gatherings, the Fowlers, the Williams cousins, the Williams family throughout the years was everything to her. I agree wholeheartedly with what Sam was talking about. She was a woman of style, great style in clothing, grace and courage. I saw this example of courage when our sister Patty passed away 2 years ago. And that's a loss our family has never recovered from. She lost her only daughter, yet she maintained great composure during this difficult and sad time in our lives. On the outside, she held it together. But I know on the inside, she was in complete turmoil. But I admired her strength and her courage to continue to live her life and move forward. During this last year, as she became weaker, you could really see the side effects of colon cancer, what it does to a person's body. They became more evident. And unfortunately, accidents would happen. She was helpless to these events. And it's a stark reminder of just the scourge of cancer. Her loving and oldest grandchild, Zach, my first son, would come down from Portland to help his grandmother do her laundry, clean her room, clean her furniture, and lovingly help Mom. The humanity of that, what most people would consider humiliating to have to go through, and unable to help themselves at that point in their lives. Thank you, Zachary, for everything you did for your grandma. You never hesitated to help. We're all very proud of your deep love and devotion to your grandma. Finally, this brings me to my beautiful wife, Gracie. So the law says that she has to be a daughter-in-law, but she was a daughter to Mom. She stepped in and filled the void when we lost Pat, and I know she was your mama. I can't tell you the countless shopping trips for Mom's needs, pharmacy runs, various sundry purchases Mom needed, and always our Sunday lunches when we come down to be with her. Mom had a special place for you in her heart, and I believe you are a living angel. It was Gracie who received the last hug from Mom before she slipped into a total state of sleep, never to awake. That was on Wednesday. Gracie was with her when she took her last breath, holding her hand, praying, reading scripture, and telling her everything is going to be okay. And with that, Mom left this earthly world and into the loving arms of the Lord. Thank you, Mom, for your love and sacrifices you made for your children, for your example of kindness, decency, love, and devotion to family. You now have everlasting peace and rest that you so desperately sought these last few months of your life. You're finally reunited with your husband and your daughter. We are grateful for your life and for your love for all of us. We miss you already. We love you forever. God bless all of you.
I'm the youngest grandson. Very unprepared, but you knew my grandma. You knew how much she would nudge you to say something if you had something to say. Honestly, I wouldn't be the person I am today without my grandma being most honest, strong-minded, sensible, and her sense of humor. Just some memories I have, a lot of them have to do with when she lived in Albany with my grandfather. Waking up early in the morning, whether I liked it or not, because the smell of her coffee or breakfast that her and Grandpa were cooking. She loved cooking too, a lot. Yeah, pies were good. Breakfast, dinner, lunch, whatever it was, she would make sure that me and my brothers were fed. There'd be times where my grandpa would drag me to go and tinker with stuff in his shop. I'd go into the house, to the bathroom, and my grandma would just be like, "Don't go back out there, stay here and eat." That's kind of who she was. She just liked to take care of people she loved, and I don't know. She was always supportive of every decision that me and my brothers made, whether it be sports like baseball or me and Pierce doing music stuff. She was always interested in what we were up to and full support. And yeah, I remember how strong she was during the whole passing of my grandpa. It's hard to say, but I don't even think I remember seeing her cry at that service, which showed me how strong she was of a person. And she just held us grandkids and told us everything was all right, and she always kind of did that. She was always there. Yeah, yes, sir.
I ever knew three things my grandmother loved, and most of you know these. If you don't, well, you didn't know Jane. Number one was family. She loved everybody. Anybody who wasn't a part of her family was a friend. Anybody who visited. I'd always stop down in Albany with one of my best friends, going to drill and coming home, and her and Grandpa would welcome them in. Doesn't matter what nationality, what religion, background, she welcomed him in. You want some SpaghettiOs or some spaghetti or some pie? He'd offer us dinner, even at 10 o'clock at night. She loved her sisters very, very much. Carol, all the time. Maxine. I hear a lot about your trips to the casinos. Some I probably shouldn't have heard. I know she loved everybody so much. I learned a lot about my aunt. Stuff that my grandmother probably never shared with anybody else. About Aunt Pat, I learned a lot from my grandmother. She held it in all these years. But she survived and she pushed through like she would. So, I know she loved everybody in the family. Number 2, damn did she love those casinos. She loved gambling so much. I remember as a kid going to Grandma and Grandpa's, and at the time they didn't have a washer and dryer. Down in the trailer home, they had a little local area you had to ride your bike to or go walk, or in case they would just drive or take a little cart. You'd have to go to your laundry. And I know Grandpa had a shop over there as they were managers of the apartment complex or double wides. And I remember one time they went to her and Pat. I know they went to Reno a few times. I know they've been to other casinos, Seven Feathers, and I remember they won enough money and saved enough. They bought themselves a washer and dryer. Grandma and Grandpa put a washer and dryer in their double wide. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. Never replaced the carpet in the bathroom, pink carpet in that little tiny bathroom, but they put a washer and dryer in there.
She replaced it with just new pink.
Just new pink. Let me tell you, she did a lot of the designing and all the decorating in their home. Some of it was pretty nice, others was interesting. You see a lot of ceramics out. She had ceramics, she had some beautiful lamps. I remember in their bedroom, they always had a little touch lamp that she kept. She would touch it on the side and it'd, light up. Casinos, I remember every year, the last few years, Carol, you guys would go to the casino and meet Maxine, and she told me she loved gambling. She'd win a lot. I don't know how she got so lucky. I wish I'd get some of that. But my grandmother loved to gamble and take chances because she said, live life and enjoy it. So she would. She got lucky and sometimes not so much. I remember one story about her and Pat gambling, and they had back then the cups full of coins, and somebody tried robbing them. Somebody tried pulling it. I don't know who else was with them. And Pat got up and yelled, and security chased them down. Grandma got her money back. So I know they love that. Third is, I know definitely where I get a passion, is, I think as my dad mentioned, my grandma loved her Mariners. If you weren't watching the Mariners on her house, it was Fox News, but she would always have the Mariners game on. Sound or not, she would watch the Mariners, watch the pitching. She'd yell at the TV. If they're playing the Yankees, better watch out. You're going to hear some cuss words in there. As she'd always say, "God damn Yankees."
She didn't like the Ducks either.
She hated the Ducks. She absolutely hated the Ducks.
Darn Ducks.
My grandma had a lot of favorite things. She had her favorite rag shop. Those of you who knew, Emporium, down in the little shopping area over in Albany. I think later on turned into Mervyn's. She'd go shopping. She'd take us there, shopping at the strip mall. If we needed something, Grandma would spoil us. We'd go to Emporium, Dairy Queen. She loved that. About this time last year, as I learned about my grandmother's illness, I did go down and help her, and I got to know a lot of deep secrets from my grandma. The hardest thing for me Hardest thing for me was hearing from my grandmother. Every day I called her, Zachary, I don't want to wake up. And I told her, Grandma, knock it off. You're fine. And every time I call her, it's the first thing she'd tell me. But spending more time, I learned secrets and stories, and she shared a lot. As Pastor David mentioned, I learned about her trip she took, had a wild hair and decided to go to Pendleton with her friend and go take up being a waitress at a diner down there. I know it didn't make great-grandma very happy, and then when she came back, she was very happy, but she was a wild one. Grandma, no license, took off in a car one day, leaving as a teenager, going with her best friend across the state. She was witty. If you knew her sense of humor, she was a witty woman. And if you drink, which I recently found out she loved Bloody Marys, Uncle Warren would take her and they'd have Bloody Marys together. She'd have a glass of wine. Occasionally I got to have the privilege of having a cold beer with Grandma. I pushed on to my dad and my uncles the thought of taking her to travel because I knew she really wanted to travel, and I thank you, Sam, for taking her. She couldn't go on enough about Skamania Lodge. If you didn't know, Sam came down from Seattle the last 2 years, and they went to Skamania for Christmas, and she absolutely loved it. Back years ago, when my parents were married, we had a house. Grandma and Grandpa would come over for Christmas. They'd always bring lots of toys and stay for the weekend. And, as we got older, we'd have Christmas at Pat's, Thanksgiving at Pat's, sometimes leftover Easter at Pat's. And she was fun. So I thank everybody for coming out here and celebrating her life. She's a wild one, and if it's one thing I learned from her, it's enjoy every day while you can. Enjoy it. So thank you.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them blue for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying how Someday I wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind. Be where trouble melts like lemon drops, high above the chimney top. That's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow. Bluebirds fly, and the dream that you did to the white cube-tie. Oh, someday I wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind. Be where trouble melts like a lemon drops, high above the chimney top. That's where you find me, oh, somewhere.
Some bright morning when the light is over, I'll fly away to that on God's celestial shore. I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory. I'll fly away in the morning when I have you in my mind. I'll fly away when the shadows of this life are gone. I'll fly away like a bird from these prison walls. I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory. I'll fly away in the morning when I have you in my mind. I'll fly away.
I was standing by my window on a cold and cloudy day when I saw the earth come rolling for to carry my mother away. Will the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by? There's a better home waiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky.
always think that, I always noticed what style the Fowler women had. Mom Fowler and the girls too, they all had their hair perfect all the time. And were dressed in, the latest, and they all had such style. And I think of Marie, as I knew her, and didn't know her, as well because of coming so late to the family, but just always was a lady, and yet I know she had her little gambling thing. But it always made me mad that she won, that wasn't fair. But this is her favorite song, How Great Thou Art. If you can sing it with me. Oh Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the world my hands have made, I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, thy power throughout the universe. I think it's too high. Then sings my soul, my Savior God to me. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God to me. How great thou art, how great thou art. Can we start over in a better key? Oh Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the world thy hands have made, I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, thy power throughout the universe displayed. Then sings my soul, my Savior God to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. I think of him, his son not sparing, send him to die, I scarce can take it in. And on the cross, my burden gladly bearing, he bled and died to take away my sin. Then sings my soul, my Savior God to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art.
Thank you very much. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we go. Family's asked that you please make sure and sign the guest book right outside the door there on the table. They'd love to know exactly who is here. Thank you. They're serving a lunch afterwards. The food is behind you, and you can just bring it back to the tables where you are. And in case you missed it, the restrooms are out the door in that little hallway to the left there. So please stick around and continue to share and fellowship and support one another. And if we just close with a prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for this time that we have had. We just pray that you would be with us now that this time is over, to continue to remember, to honor Jane Williams by doing the things that she would have done, by laughing and loving and caring and serving. I pray that in those times when the memories become sad and the feelings are strong of missing her, that you would bring comfort and that you would help this family comfort one another, to know when the time is right to call that family member, that friend, and the words to say, or just to be there in silence. So we pray these things, and we give you thanks once again for this wonderful life of Jane Williams. In your holy name. Thank you again for coming.